all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. I think you'll find very interesting. We always want to remind you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or by going to veteransradio.net, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.net. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We also want to thank our latest national sponsor, Veteran Lending Council. It is a community dedicated to educating lenders, realtors, and veterans on the VA Home Loan Benefit Program. You can check them out on Facebook and other social media outlets. Welcome, I am Jim Fausone, and this is Veteran Radio's Spotlight on Veterans Lending Council. Veterans Radio America is a nonprofit and has a partnership with Veterans Lending Council. Veterans Lending Council is a community dedicated to educating lenders, realtors, and veterans on the VA Home Loan Benefit Program. The Veterans Lending Council is going to help explain the VA Home Loan Program each month here on Veterans Radio. There are features of the VA benefit that many people are unaware of, and education really is the mission of Veterans Lending Council. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio the founders of Veterans Lending Council, Michael Fischer. Welcome to Veterans Radio.
How you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing well. And your partner, founder here, Eric Ensley. Eric, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we're glad to have you guys on because this is one of those little-known benefits. We all kind of know we got it when we served. Some of us occasionally use it, or we used it once a long time ago, and we don't know what it's like today. This is not only for veterans, but their friends and family to get educated on this so that maybe you can say, hey, you really should look at this no matter what somebody's telling you. So why don't we start with this, Michael? Why don't you start with explain what the VA Home Loan Program or this benefit is about?
Sure thing, Jim. The VA Home Loan Benefit is actually a guarantee from the Veterans Administration, and it guarantees the home loan against foreclosure, in essence. Now, that in itself may not sound like a huge benefit, but it does allow a veteran, an eligible veteran, to purchase a home without a down payment or without monthly mortgage insurance payment like many other mortgage programs. Because the VA home loan has performed so well over the years, the rates are generally, in many cases, better than other types of financing. So it's a home loan benefit that gives veterans a chance to buy at a lower rate with much less expense, with much less out of pocket, and get started down the road to build wealth. It's kind of important to point out that the VA itself doesn't lend money. The money comes from banks in the secondary market. The VA acts as an intermediary to guarantee the loan and to set up the rules for the program so that lenders know how to structure and offer the loans. Does that make sense?
It does, and there's a lot to unpack there. Eric, do you find that VA home loan program is used primarily by first-time buyers, or is it exclusive to first-time buyers?
It is not exclusive to first-time buyers. Specifically, the VA benefit, I mean, it's a reusable benefit. We as veterans, once we've earned it, can use it as many times as we want, with some stipulations. You can't have 10 VA home loans, but you can, in some instances have more than one. And so, I'm a good example of that. I didn't use the VA loan for my first home, but I did later use it on that home, and then again on a new primary residence. And I simultaneously had 2 VA loans. A lot of people don't know you could do that. One thing that's worth pointing out, it's easier for me to say this than it is for Mike, as a veteran myself. We just tend to not know, we don't know our own benefits, and there's a lot of problems that stem from that, because for whether it's a veteran who's doing great and has everything going for them, they're probably missing out on some things just because they haven't spent the time to find it. And then, veterans that need help often have hard times figuring out what their own benefits are, because it's just not our primary focus while we're in. And then, once you're out, you're kind of on your own unless you find somebody to help navigate through the system of what all our benefits are. So when it comes specifically to the home loan, we try and put pressure on those in our industry to represent the VA home loan well and be educators in the space to be able to make sure that veterans are taking advantage of the benefit that they've earned. Because a lot of them, if we aren't the ones that tell them about it, they're not going to ask about it. And we've seen that time and time again where veterans just didn't know, and so therefore they got put in the wrong loan program. And it's not necessarily that it was a bad loan program; it just wasn't as good as what the VA benefit allows for.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, education was really the key part of this. That's what Veterans Lending Council is doing, and that's why we do what we do on Veterans Radio, is to kind of get that word out. You mentioned, Eric, and I guess I'll toss this to Michael, can this only be used on primary residences?
Well, Jim, that's a great question. And if a veteran is looking to purchase, yes, they can only use it as a primary residence. However, a couple, I guess you could say, exceptions or other situations that would apply. For example, if a veteran is buying a multi-unit property, but living in one of the units, they could potentially get rental income on those additional units as long as they're living in one of the units as a primary residence. Does that make sense?
It is. That's clever, and that's why you got to talk to experts, because they know the little wrinkles. It was also mentioned, and I think the term is PMI, that under the VA loan program you may not have to pay the mortgage insurance. Is that what PMI is, Eric?
Yes. Excuse me. PMI is private mortgage insurance. So where you'd see that is on a conventional loan with less than 20% down. What the mortgage insurance is that client is paying to insure the lender effectively, right? The lender's lending money. It's less than 20% equity in the home, and therefore the lender says this is kind of high risk because you don't have a lot of equity. If the market goes down 5%, when you put 5% down, you might walk away, and I'm out. We're out some money. If the market drops 10%, now you're 5% underwater. The PMI company would then, that money would go to the lender. They would pay out a claim in order to make that lender whole. So the client is paying for insurance for the lender. The benefit that we've earned as veterans is that the VA is guaranteeing these loans. So what they're doing is they're ensuring that the lender has an acceptable, they're ensuring that the lender, in the event of a foreclosure where the lender's about to take a loss, the VAs will step in and cut a check to the lender up to 25% of the original purchase price of the home. And we're allowed to do that without paying for mortgage insurance, because that's effectively what the benefit is that we've earned.
Yeah, that's a savings.
That's part of the savings, but it's not only that. Typically what you're going to see nationwide is, VA loans are going to have slightly lower interest rates than conventional to start with. The barrier to entry to buy a house is obviously a lot easier because the VA loan is a zero down loan program. But then on top of that, you have additional savings on your monthly payment because you're not paying that private mortgage insurance.
Well, this is there's going to be a ton of great information every month as we put the spotlight on the Veterans Lending Council. You've just heard the tip of the iceberg on this, but we really look forward to our partnership with Michael Fischer and Eric Ensley, the founders of Veterans Lending Council. Now, guys, I want to turn to expanding our discussion a little bit. How the heck, Michael, did you get yourself in a position of going, hey, I'm going to really understand this program, and once I understand it, I want to teach and help others learn about the VA home loan program?
That's a great question, Jim. And it just brings up a personal journey for myself that I think a lot of us in life and in business need to ask ourselves, and that's, why do we come to work? Why do we do the things that we do? Are we actually making a difference in the world? And, like many folks, I kind of went through the motions and went to college and ended up in lending with a science degree. Makes a lot of sense, right? But ultimately, at some point, I felt like I was not making a huge difference. And I ran across some other folks in a company that I still worked for who were out on the streets teaching and talking about the VA home loan benefit and how misunderstood it was in the marketplace. And when I ran across that kind of information in class, I realized I myself was actually part of the problem. I was part of the reason why some veterans weren't using their benefit to build wealth and manage debt, just because the industry had never taken priority to educate me about how the benefit worked and how easy it was to work with as a professional. And at that point, I actually kind of felt down because I felt like I'd been giving some folks bad advice for years. And I, at the time, had really been spending a lot of energy trying to help other people and build social networks and things like that. And I realized I had a platform to do better. At that point, I said, hey, what if I take this particular program of educating real estate agents and try to expand it where we're actually helping lenders and helping veterans directly, doing things all over the place. And that all sounded well and good, but I wasn't super excited about it until one day I sat down with a few friends of mine and I really unpacked it and broke it down. And they asked me the same question you did, Mike, why are you doing this? And I said, it's more than me just looking at other home buyers. I'm also looking kind of at my life and how, my parents were really the first generation to go through college. And my parents actually, I didn't really think about it until I got in lending. My dad had used the GI Bill. My dad had served in Vietnam. And my parents were able to own houses and build wealth and get into a scenario where all of the children were able to go to college and have a huge chunk of assistance from our parents building, this American dream. A lot of that just, quite frankly, wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the VA benefit. So, I kind of looked inward and said, man, there's a lot of us on the street who, like myself, have military parents. We may be civilians, but the best thing we can do is excel at our professions. And there's just such a big gap or lack of education in this profession that if I have a conduit to educate others, I'm going to do everything I can. So that's kind of my story. That's how I got to the point where we're trying to build things to start with the lending industry and then push that message through all the other industries that are related to housing so that vets can actually understand this and use this benefit to build wealth.
Well, when you don't understand your benefits, it's really easy to be sort of pointed away from them, whether it's your realtor, your lender, a friend who thinks he's helping goes, oh, you don't want to use the VA program. It takes too long. It's this, it's that. And all of that's sort of not true, which is why it's so important to have folks out there educating. Eric, you come at it from a slightly different fashion. Tell tell us a little bit about how Eric Ensley ended up being a founder of Veterans Lending Council.
Oh, the paratrooper turned mortgage banker. It's the story told 1,000 times. Right? We've all seen that movie.
As you jumped out of the plane, you thought, if I only had a good mortgage.
or thought, I wish I was writing mortgages instead. Well, I mean, I will tell you that I was a typical veteran in terms of knowing my benefit, right? The experience that I had as a service member with coming back from deployment and going through a yellow ribbon ceremony is what they called it, where I got a 20-minute block of instruction on you have this VA benefit, and it will ultimately those classes, while well-intentioned, it's just not proper timing, right? You just come home from a war zone, you're looking to get American food and be with your family. Like that is the only thing on the top of your mind. So paying attention to your benefit is not something that as a 20-year-old kid coming back from Iraq was top of mind for me. So ultimately that lack of knowledge that I had did cost me money, because like I said, when I bought my first house, it wasn't on a VA loan, and that was due to it's not because I didn't mention it. Obviously part of my income was military income at the time, and so the lender knew I had just come home from Iraq on that deployment when I was buying, and the lender said, save your VA loan for your big boy house, is effectively what I was told, implying that you could only use that benefit one time, which is incorrect. But again, 20-year-old kid, didn't know any better, and just took the advice given from the professional wearing a tie and used the wrong loan program. That cost me money, and I didn't realize it. But it was years later that I realized I'm paying mortgage insurance that I shouldn't be paying. I paid a funding fee on a loan program that I shouldn't have been in. Should have been on a VA loan with no funding fee, because as a service-connected disability rating, I don't pay a funding fee and I don't pay mortgage insurance. So it cost me money that I didn't know. And whether that lender just didn't know the benefit, or whether the lender took what they considered the easier path, I don't know. But we find that a lot in the lending community, and when ultimately people kind of push back on VA, and I think it's just due to misinformation. It's misunderstanding of the program itself, how to navigate the program. It's not complicated. The VA loan is one of the most flexible loan programs out there, but I think people are just afraid of it because they don't have enough experience with it.
Yeah, right? That's really, when you don't know, you shy away, and as soon as the banker with the tie said, "Oh, save that for later," okay, wrong advice, but right. Okay. Let me ask, when did you guys start Veterans Lending Council?
Go ahead, Mike.
1, 2, 3. Not it. No, I'll take that question. All right. We started Veterans Lending Council over a year ago. The actual LLC itself is about a year old, but we decided to take some of the classes and education and things that we had been doing over the years, different places in the country, in different locations, different initiatives, and combine them into a united front. We took some of the best industry leader friends that we had that were running veteran-focused businesses. We're doing a lot of VA loans. Some of our council partners are doing a ton of active duty finance projects. And we all kind of came together and said, hey, instead of doing this as a one-person team, let's build a special forces unit, if you will. Let's build a group of people that already have experience, have been around, run successful businesses, and let's do something different. Let's do something that's going to give back to the veteran community by helping the lending community get better and providing a platform first for the lending community. So that's kind of how we came together. But we have been networking with some of these folks for years through the classes that we've been talking about. We taught many of these classes under a brand called Military Mortgage Boot Camp. Anywhere through Michigan, Florida, East Coast, West Coast. There was classes being taught all over the country at one point. And we just realized that the classes were great, but there wasn't as much unity in continuing the mission. It was just kind of let's plant a bunch of seeds. So we said, let's come together, a unit that meets every single week, that talks about initiatives on a larger scale every single week, that agrees we're doing this for the purpose of education and growth, and not necessarily as a primary source of income. And it's really been cool to see how it evolved from us just showing up in a studio, writing down ideas and recording things, video, and turning it into training courses and launching it. And, just in a few short months, having several hundred members join and things like that. And, we can talk about the things we're doing all day long, but really the cool part to me is that we've got a lot of people buying into it. It's not just one person's idea or one person's concept. It's this concept of unity coming together and focusing heavily on the mission at hand.
Well, it's the power of that community, and it's the training the trainers, if you will. Every time you guys on the Veterans Lending Council dispel a myth that some other loan officer or banker or realtor is broadcasting out into the world, it has a big ripple effect, and really that training the trainer is something we all understand in the military. I got to tell the story that I used the GI Bill to go to law school back in the late 70s, early 80s, and then I bought my first home with the GI VA loan program. At that time, the interest rate was about 15%. And I was really lucky to have the VA loan because it knocked it down a point or two and, got rid of that insurance and those sorts of things. Now, fortunately, the insurance rate didn't stay that high, and I was able to mortgage back out of it. But it's many of us, Michael, you talk about your dad and using it in Vietnam. My dad did it in World War II. I did it during the Cold War. Eric's done it after the current Iraq war. I mean, it really is a generational wealth builder if you know how to use the program and use it when you need it, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll speak to that as somebody who is started a investment property side business, where when the VA loan allowed me to be in a position where I didn't need to sell my house to use the equity to put a down payment on a new primary residence. Instead, I was allowed to leave that home in place and carry that and use, go zero down on a second VA loan, which allowed me to have my first rental property, right? And then down, years later, because I had that rental property, I was able to pull equity from that one as a down payment on a second one. So, the VA loan is effectively what allowed me to start the ball rolling in the investment property space, which, if I could go back in time, knowing what I know now, the first property that I would have bought would be a 4-unit, like Mike alluded to, because it's just it's something that you don't really think about as a first-time home buyer, right? But if I had the right education, I'd have been going that way, because you can buy multi-unit property and be in that house for a couple of years and then move on and buy your next home. Now you've got a cash flowing 4-unit rental property. I mean, that's quite a way to set yourself up coming back from a war. Right?
Absolutely. And I've got a nephew I'm going to talk about doing that with, and have him contact you guys. Can
I add one?
Go right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead.
Something we see on the streets every day. We talk about lack of education, but there's some really important talking points here. And I've talked to many veteran buyers who wanted to buy that multi-unit property, but were told they could not find any way to count the revenue coming in from those extra units towards qualifying. And that's not exactly the case. And I don't want to get too much into the loan specifics, but again, there's a lot of veterans that are going down the path of just, trusting a bank they might have worked with, or a logo they've seen on TV or what have you. And unfortunately, they're getting misinformation, and they're being told they don't qualify when in fact they do, or they would, with just a couple tips in some direction. Does that make sense? Absolutely.
And that's why we're so happy here at Veterans Radio to have this partnership with Veterans Lending Council, because there's so much to talk about, and we'll talk about it every month, these different little, tricks of the trade, if you want to call them that. And VA writes, I think you told me 1.2 million loans. It's a big segment of the population, and veterans have a higher home ownership than the rest of the population. So, there's a lot of our comrades out there who are going to need this information. Maybe they're going to pass it down to their sons and daughters, nieces and nephews. So we really look forward to it. This was our first opportunity to delve into some of these questions, and we look forward to having Michael Fischer and Eric Ensley back, or their colleagues back, over the next set of months to talk more and more about the VA home loan program. Guys, thanks for spending a little time today with Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you, Jim.
It's been great.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by going to veteransradio.net. And until next time, you are dismissed.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, NVBDC.org, VA Ann Arbor Health Care System, the Vietnam Veterans of America Charles S. Kettles Chapter, Ann Arbor, Michigan, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423 in Ann Arbor, and the American Legion Press Corn Post 46, also in Ann Arbor. And the Veterans Lending Council, which advises lenders, realtors, buyers about VA home loan program, and you can find them on Facebook. We appreciate all your support. You can go to veteransradio.net, click on the sponsor level, and continue to support keeping Veterans Radio on the air. And until next time, you are dismissed.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.